Welcome to the podcast that puts a finger on the pulse of revenue and technology. On this show, you'll hear from industry experts, executives, and investors on the art of transforming B2B businesses into scale-up insurgents. This is Revenue Uncoded.
Revenue Uncoded.
Revenue Uncoded.
And we're going to talk today about billing as an advantage for a business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a disadvantage.
Yeah, it is.
And a liability, a chain around your neck, dragging you down.
Yeah, bad, evil. And then are we also going to talk about planning?
We should talk about how do you
or do you
these
just want
plans?
to go straight to billing, how it enables
I'm going to kind of let you
powers.
figure out exactly how you want to approach using billing as a competitive advantage in your planning and how you would utilize how a customer could use these techniques to improve their overall position in the marketplace, their flexibility, their speed to market, their costs for new billing packages, bundles,
agility, business agility,
fail fast,
and
move
how
forward.
To address incremental business change, which ties back actually to the planning cycle.
So let's talk planning. How would I plan for this?
Well, the reality is that we deal with large companies and they all set these plans. They start gathering information in, the summer.
And
2012. They start, how are we going to set these budgets for IT systems, for marketing and sales and everything, right? And you have to have a strategic plan, right? And so, if you go by department, I look at these IT guys and I think about how vendors are approved and how they're incorporated, and they'll talk about just an upgrade, or they'll talk about the upkeep or the maintenance, and they'll have to put a significant portion on that. But what I don't see a lot of is planning for incremental business change, allowing deviation in the budget.
So your plan is kind of set within these parameters, and maybe you've got a little slop in there for plus or minus this by a percentage.
Yeah.
But but if you were to look at the overall 365-day year with this, there isn't a kind of a built-in uplift for things that you might want to do.
Either uplift or buffer or allowance. And I think, the biggest variable that drives, the inclusion of that as a budget line item is probably the company's competitive state,
their vision, right?
Well, I think more. If it's in a space that's fairly static, right, that doesn't need a lot of change, and it's more about the execution on a business strategy, a marketing strategy, or an IT strategy, then it's more about maintenance. It's more about just kind of keeping the truck rolling. And from a billing perspective, that really doesn't need a lot of TLC. It doesn't It doesn't need a lot of complexity. It doesn't really mandate the need for an agile system. You're probably fine going with some of the industry leaders that are more about cranking through firepower, large volumes, right? But it's large volumes of the same thing, right? Because they're not in a competitive space.
So 10 million grains of sand, they're all grains of sand, right?
Pretty much. It's
rocks, gravel, pebbles, and banana splits.
And then other segments of the industry will say, well, there's 37% of the industry that's on that application, and so that's the way to go. And that's one of the things I've kind of found very frustrating.
The herd mentality?
The herd mentality. I won't say which segment of the communications sector, but ones that don't necessarily have a lot of competition may not necessarily be innovators.
Well, why would they take that risk at that point? You would think without a reason with their plan.
Well,
everything you're talking
inevitably
about,
markets and technology change all that,
right? And so they to be like kind of what I was getting at with the visionary part. You have to have, you're doing an annual plan, but it needs to be tied to a 5 and 10 year vision.
Always.
And it always has to be that way. So if you're in an industry, let's go to the next step. It's not static. You have a very competitive service offering, bundle offering, widget offering, whatever it is
Or
that you're doing. There's multiple.
You're in knife fights with your competition out there. You see that certainly in the mobile space a lot more, right? Where, oh my God, there's an offer.
Free
oh my
phone.
God, how do
they
I
get
compete
this.
with that? And you can do that at a national level, or you can do that at a local or a regional level.
And if you cover multiple geographies in your business, i.e., large markets, small markets, ones that have a low annual income versus a high annual income, and you're billing all of that through the same unified sort of systems, you need to have one that has a very wide breadth of options to it to be able to handle the non-banking household and the billionaire. All of them, because they have totally different sets of billing needs and requirements as a customer.
Yep, absolutely.
So
and how do you react to those conditions, right? And so those guys that have those monolithic battleships, those I don't think they're well suited for those spaces or competitive spaces, because they're not able. We have a customer that says, "I've got a new campaign or a new promotion," right? That they expect to see that implemented in 2 days.
Yeah.
All right. 2 days. Idea, 2 days, implement.
So would this be a full flavored complex offering in a couple of days? Like, you may have discounts, you may have,
I think that might be a little aggressive, right? To say introducing an entire new line of business.
But we're just talking, I'm talking about something like if I've got a $20 all you can eat plan, but I want to offer a $10, a $5.
Yes.
Or by the way, we're hosting the World Cup right now. So for the next 2 months, I want to have a World Cup plan for anybody that comes in, roams on my network, does all that. 2 days, 3 days, something like that.
A lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing.
That's agility.
That's agility.
That's ability to react to it.
Versus the battleship, which is 463 meetings, right? 12,000 sets of requirements that all get thrown away, redone again. And then you come back in and they go, that'll be at $100,000.
Well,
and we're not going to meet your timeline for this year's World Cup.
Yeah. That still amazes me, the acceptance of that. It just amazes me. And back to this planning piece and the budgets. So you should have an element of how competitive and how agile you need to be when you go through your planning process. And again, I just don't see that. And I've referenced in some previous conversations, big company dynamics, and they're just getting anything through all of the stakeholders is just
painful. Painful.
Man, it's just, please give me a break, man.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just a reality, right? If you're a publicly held organization, you have to go through that process. And there's other variables. You have to meet security standards, and you have to meet all the different variables that are just part of it. And I get it. That's fine. But having either the budget, all right, or the systems or the people that can kind of enact change and react to market conditions is what we kind of are pushing. And this is what we believe in. And so when you set the budget, you have to really figure out, first of all, can my software do it?
Yep.
And then secondly is, do I have the people that will make the changes, right? Whether that's in-house or through the vendor, you need to have that, right? And a lot of times people don't. Well, a lot of times the companies that I work with they don't.
Well, look at this is an observation, whether you agree or not. I'm just throwing this out here. My observation is that the billing market in a competitive space requires a higher level of integration between multiple disciplines, whether it's in the communications, whether you've got mobile, landline, you've got data, text, you've got streaming, so that it's not like the old days where you just sold telecom calls, international. Okay, I got a new flavor. So now you've got
those days are long gone.
So yeah, so your planning period now includes evaluation of your entire stack, both from a physical infrastructure, your network and the options that you have,
of course,
and then the service level stack, which is all the people you talked about. What skills do I need? What skills do I not have? How am I going to gap fill that? Do we identify what they are?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're moving into a more nimble and agile area. It's not just one item that does that. It's that entire system, that view that you need to be planning and budgeting for. And they all drive up to that delivery mechanism, the billing system, and who sees what, and it manages your revenue for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of one of the things I think about.
And there's another piece that we're not talking about as well, which is the front door, right? So what's my customer experience? What's it, the front door into all of that magic that happens with your catalog and your offerings and your integration for provisionings and workforce management and all the different facets of a good integrated stack. But that front end experience is also critical.
Absolutely.
Right. And I don't care if you're an enterprise commercial or an enterprise customer or a residential customer, you want more self-service, you want more capability, you want more visibility, right? So whether your customers are maybe in a channel distribution manner, we've got a client who is a very large franchisor, and their organization, their customers are those franchisees. Those franchisees want more visibility.
Absolutely.
And so, a competitive advantage of the billing system is that, it allows them to kind of go in, look at what they want, how they want it, and they want the visibility into it. So that's, is giving visibility to your customers, whether they'll be franchises or, residential customers or commercial account customers. They all have kind of different things that they want to see, and they want to be able to have done for them, right?
And your success as if I was a franchise, that's I've heard it both ways.
is that Colby?
So if I'm one of the franchisees,
cheddar, yes. What are we going with there?
And I want to see information specifically about my business, and since I'm paying royalties or franchise fees, et cetera, and things like that financial picture that comes back from the mothership's billing system had better give me that information. If
and it better be real time.
And it better be accurate.
It better be accurate,
and it
real
has to
time.
Be auditable.
Right.
That's and another word too, auditable.
Yeah, that's another one. You're doing great, by the way.
I feel good.
It
must be a Friday.
It's like 4 or 5 syllable words may not be good for the rest of this conversation.
No. But so with that being said, that opens that door once again during your planning phase. How complex, how much deliverable do you need out of your billing system? How many, is it super multi-tenant like in this scenario where you've got all of these people in here? Can your system do that? And who's going to manage each one of those? And what is that interface that lets your franchisors come in and get that information out, or be pushed to them and audit it? And does it integrate directly with their accounting and their finances?
I mean, that's all.
It's just a question.
Those are all kind of quasi assumed, but necessarily when they're in practice, there are a lot of there's a lot of gaps out there in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And some organizations are much better at that than others. And some people, I'm always a percentages guy. And when I look at what the percentage of revenue that I see that a company will spend on marketing, for instance, right? And you've got different stages of evolution by technology sector versus government, whatever it is, it's a percentage. And then when I look at percentages spent on IT, right? I see ones that, everybody's trying to get by on as least that they possibly can. But I just see a consistent underestimation of not necessarily the software and the processes and the security and the infrastructure, but how do I deal with that incremental business change? How do I react? Do I have the people to deal with that? And do they incorporate that into the planning stage? Because a billing system is one critical piece that allows you and enables some competitive advantage, right? So whether you're working with third-party agreements, right, that can be complex boogers by themselves that, that need to take into account 17 different variables, in order to kind of get your product, your service, your message distributed across that, the install base or your total addressable market. But whatever it is, you need to have the ability to kind of deal with your third parties, visibility, agility to respond to market conditions. And then, that's got to be kind of orchestrated across all of these stakeholders that we've talked about before: finance and marketing and operations and customer service and all the other different elements. So,
because whenever that's disconnected, you have a disconnected process, and you have it costs you a whole lot more. You lose your agility and you lose your efficiency on that when you don't have that integration across your stakeholders.
You got that, or you got swivel chairs, you got people working across multiple systems, and now you've got lack of automation, you've got frustration, you've got more points of failure,
manual points of failure,
all of these things that are very part of the equation. So what's kind of interesting is there's a new when we look at, we'll just say telecom. So you've got the big behemoths, and you've got the big regionals, and then you got the locals. I mean, you look at these some of these new green fields that are popping up. These guys that are coming in, ISP broadbands, and whether they're driving IoT market value proposition or whatever it is. Some of them are coming and saying, well, I really want a stack that's best of breed, so that I can kind of pick and choose what I really like about my customer experience, my front end, or my billing, or my OSS. And some of them are, so they kind of go out to the market with saying, I want it this best of breed. And then they kind of go over to another option B, which is more, what I call telco in a box. And there's pluses and minuses to both of those, right? Here's a cost, here's a tightly integrated system, but this is
what it's going to do.
This is what it is.
It's going to do this.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And so you're captive to that. So that's a trade-off that has to happen. And these ISPs that are coming out, some of these people are very educated, and they're saying, you know what? I don't want super complex. I just want it right here to do these sorts of things. And then I just need, these elements of customer experience and network interface, ready, set, go. And I want to be able to, the billing component is, but at the same time, my billing and rating requirements may be low, but my product complexity, my product catalog
may be high,
and my ability to kind of deal with unique, either order management or entry variables, or, how am I dealing with third parties, and how do I deal with complex settlements? Yeah. So, it's a multivariable equation that inevitably always gets down to starting with, define your business, where are you going, how you want to get there,
get your plan, work your plan,
who are your key points, and what's your go-to-market strategy, and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of ABCs of business planning. But again, I just see consistent under allocation.
Yeah, it comes up short in the long run
of
resources and money.
Probably the biggest one being people.
Yep.
And being able to leverage the strength and the value proposition of these softwares. That's the biggest thing. Yeah. And they just, and people are expensive, man. When you look at the whole stack.
And good people are even more expensive.
Yeah, and it's aggravating, it's frustrating, but it's reality.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's no substitute for somebody that understands the business and the software, and being able to combine those and provide visibility or intelligence or agility. No combination. There's no substitute for that.
Yeah. Having they can wear the multiple hats and work across different business disciplines successfully to breach those different, we'll just call them that they're kind of silo gaps.
Yeah. And the bigger the company, usually the more silos there are,
it's
right?
The harder it is. It's just natural.
And you've got, typically in a workflow, you've got, I don't know, it could be, 30 steps, right? Or 30 touch points in a workflow that across multiple systems, and, somebody that understands the software and the workflows and working across that entire spectrum is a really valuable resource.
So let's talk about then if I'm looking to do my annual plan, one of those pieces I want to be able to do is quantify what I think that that gray matter resource pool is that I need to be able to have. And if I'm purchasing a new set of services and software to go with this, I need some way of measuring what is my plan going to be? What do I need? And how am I going to make this successful? And have a high degree of confidence that I haven't missed anything. As a planner, if you have any input on that.
I would. So, it kind of talks about, first of all, what's the stage of the business? Are they new?
No,
or are they established?
It's an established incumbent with a good customer base,
Right.
but they've got legacy items and things they need.
So they've got some good. So, because where I'm going is, what's the right blend of in-house people and third-party people working together? And some people just say, I want the third party to do it all because I don't want to be part of the headache of training and all that kind of stuff. And it's up to the vendor to kind of provide good economies of scale to provide that service as part of a turnkey solution. Some people are over here saying, this is my business knowledge.
I'm going to do it all.
And I'm going to do it all. And, there's no substitute for that.
I'm going to buy some training.
Right.
You're going to train us up on this, and we're going to succeed on our own. Right?
So depending on what your business strategy is, I advocate a blend of the two. So, you want that vendor to be able to come in and say, what are best practices? What are your other customers showing you? You want them to kind of come to the table with a combination of, well, what do you want to try to do? Coupled with, well, this is something that we're seeing others at other organizations. Because if you walk in there with a blank slate that says, well, what would you like to do? Then you kind of end up boiling the ocean. You end up boiling the ocean for 3 months, 4 months, and you're nowhere.
And then usually that gets thrown away, and then you have to do it over again.
But if I'm a buyer, I'm expecting my vendor to come in and say, no, tell me what you think.
Right.
I'm not paying
and
you
that's different than how it used to be. You used to go in and have to do these answer these RFPs for 9,000 pages long.
Well, that's still out there.
But I'm just saying that the idea of having, we'll call it some trusted voices with your vendors that are able to answer specific questions.
Trust is gained, right?
Yeah.
Trust is gained. And
through their experiences. So they come out with some degree of cachet and a history and pedigree of being successful in the area that I want to buy something in, for example. So I need to have someone be able to paint that story for me.
So to me, I really, I usually ask, well, first of all, are you a static service offering or are you a dynamic? It ties back to competitive offerings that we talked about. So once you kind of do that, then you say, well, let's talk about the economics of full-time employees versus third party. And that's got a whole, on this side, what's the right mix of onshore, offshore? That's a whole nother discussion. But inevitably, the key people are the solution architects, the business analysts, the knowledgeable people that should be coming to the customer with best practices that learn their knowledge. And I think from a planning perspective, circling around and getting back to your question, it should be a mix. Yeah. Whereby I'm leaning on you that, sometimes it makes sense to kind of say, hey, look, this process or this function, is just better served with you doing it, right? That's kind of repeatable and one that you can kind of plug into, economies of scale on the vendor side. But when you get up here on the business side, up here, right? The buyer has to be driving that bus. They're the one who has to be the one telling this is what I want to do, and the vendor has to be the one saying, well, here's the art of the possible, and here's what we've done before, and it's got to be I hate to say it, a partnership. Most overused word, but that's what it is.
A synergy
and learning together because when you work together with a client for, and these billing systems solution decisions, these are Not all RFPs are 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
All right.
This is long-term.
The reality is
engagement.
that you're talking about a decade.
Yeah.
You're talking about 15 years, sometimes 20 years.
Yeah.
And the evolution of that system has to kind of go with them. So there's an implied knowledge, business knowledge. I've had one customer say, I love your software and I love what you can do for my business, but man, that guy knows my business so well. He's an extension of my business, and I want him
on this.
Right.
And I will pay what you want.
Well, within reason, right? But
I just like to say that.
And sometimes, that's a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
Because
you need to use them somewhere else.
Or the other guy gets hit by a bus, right?
Yeah.
Or he ends up, saying, I'm going to go, be a crystal merchant in Portland or something,
Well, I can see
or I'm going
that.
to go learn how to ride a unicycle and just change my life. You never know, right? So,
and wear my hat backwards.
So you never know. So, single points of failure and all that kind of stuff. And you want replication, good business.
But it still fits into those specific sort of categories we were talking about on the business plan, the people, the software, the business model, and it's flexibility. How dynamic do you think you need to be? So if you're going to have that, you've got to plan for that, for the future, for that.
If
for
those
that year.
are known by the company, and if there's an acceptance of incremental business change for a competitive environment, and if there's a willingness to invest in the people and the systems to allow you to be agile and react to innovation in the marketplace or what the customer wants or what your partners want or your third party wants, then your billing system should be able to handle all of the above.
Quickly, efficiently.
And if it doesn't, you got the wrong billing system.
Yeah. It shouldn't take 6 months and $10,000 and dead people in the corner.
Now we're talking about, when you come to that realization, oh shit. No, that just cost me money. So
cash cow.
The cash cow. Then you go through oh my God, we're going to have to change it.
Yeah.
So now you've got cat claws on the wall, right? You've got people that say, I know this billing system. I'm not going to change it. I don't want to change it.
Yeah.
And so it's a painful exercise. It is not fun.
No.
Right? So does the pain, the money, and the time really justify all of those strategic initiatives? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right. Especially if you have an older system that's been customized for that decade and a half. You're talking about scooping out the brain and trying to put a new one in.
Yeah, man.
Versus sometimes you just got to cut the head off and sew a new one on.
Sometimes you just got to blow it up.
Or put another head right on the shoulder here and slowly migrate over.
You can't do that because, business has got to continue. Invoices got to be.
What's I'm saying? It has to run in parallel.
Parallel paths. But man,
it's painful.
I saw a very large telco company, right, that had, I don't know, probably 6 core billing systems. Realized, man, we got way too many billing systems here. I saw them take 6 years analyzing, figuring out what they had to do in order to consolidate into 2. And then the selection process of how 6 years. What's the opportunity cost on that?
I don't know. That's a lot of club.
That's insanity, man.
Yeah.
6 years. And they paid consultants millions of dollars. Millions of dollars trying to figure out requirements.
And then it changes 5 times.
And it changes. It's like.
Then you acquire something else or sell something off in the middle of that 6-year process.
See, that's why I'm an advocate of agile vendor selection. But that's another discussion for another podcast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But one quick insert is that you lean on the vendors to bring their best practices to the dance to shorten the entire selection process. I don't know. I could talk about that one for a long time.
Done differently than it was, let's say, pre-COVID, for example. Usually you have to go to the customer site. You go into here, and it's, now you build those,
And
some of
to
those,
go on bone fishing trips.
yeah,
and,
bone fishing and
yeah,
things.
well,
and,
then you bring in this, whatever.
but you
I'm joking,
you get those,
I'm joking.
you get those,
kind of.
you get those, that relationship building is done a little differently now than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the end goal is still the same thing for both the buyer and the vendor, is you've got to have that relationship on anything that's of substance.
Yeah, you do. And sometimes the selection of a vendor gets down to speeds and feeds, products and bells and whistles. Sometimes it gets down to culture.
Yep.
And sometimes it gets back to how hungry are these guys? How well are they going to support me? Not just through the build and the now we're live and now we're going to go forward. The cultural fit.
Yeah.
How do they fit with me? Because sometimes big comes with a lot of really good pluses. We talked about that herd. Well, we're one of 37% that's in this space.
Yeah.
So it's good and it's safe. Yay, warm, glowing happiness. But, again, you kind of lose the innovation part and you move with the speed of the herd.
Yeah.
So, does the culture and the software of that company really support where I want to go and how I want to get there? And am I willing to look at a smaller vendor that may not necessarily have all of the formality in the process that comes with price? By the way, you go up like this, up. But then you got vendor viability and stability, and can I count on these guys being here 15 years from now, when the evolution of this software that deals and addresses my incremental business change from the initial install, and then it kind of migrates and permeates into this 17-headed monster.
Yeah. Then
you got care and feeding, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Totally separate ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
But they do all have the same sort of ramifications, though. It's all about that nimble, agile, being able to react to a plan.
Man, I think it really just gets down to just a company being honest with themselves. Right? Everybody's wanting to save a buck, and everybody's trying to squeeze margins over time. That's natural. That's an evolution, right? And there should be economies and things should get better. But you got to be honest with yourself and say, what are the systems that I need? What do I really need to do? What do I want to do? And am I allocating enough of my budget for I don't know what's going to happen? Because I don't see this. There's just not an allowance of, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. Something's going to happen. Something's either going to blow up or something new is going to be asked of me. There's going to be an acquisition. We're an M&A firm, whatever. They don't and that applies to the software, infrastructure, and the people. Yeah. And you have to lean on the business knowledge on both internal and on the vendor side to be able to address that business change. Yeah. And it's implied that your systems and your billing systems sure as hell better be able to do that. And if they can't, you got the wrong billing system. Yep.
That doesn't end well for you.
Yep.
Especially if you just spent 6 years looking at how to do that.
That's not a joke, by the way.
I know.
6 years.
I know.
Very large.
It brings a tear to my eye.
One of the largest ones. And I'm just, and it blows my head away. And look, they're, dealing with a $50 billion company that has 35 different tentacles or lines of business and options. That's going to be a logical manifestation.
Yeah.
Right. So you grow up, and then you got to consolidate, and then how do you evolve? And that's natural. Yeah. But 6 years, come on, man. I mean, if I'm a shareholder or if I'm the CEO in that company, there'd be a lot of body bags.
Yeah, you can be answering a lot of questions.
If you told me 6 years on something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need a new sheriff in town on that.
Which also gets down to what's the sense of urgency and what's the level of pain, and what I think the other value of a good billing system is, when you look at that strategic plan and that annual plan, are you looking at opportunity costs? I think a lot of people don't take that into account as much as they should. What am I missing? What am I not getting? you know? So,
Well, and that's that thing, like you said, you saved enough money to buy a sports car, but you didn't have any extra money to put gas in it or do the maintenance on it, and it's super expensive.
Yeah, and the mechanic who comes in with the white gloves, and the white coat.
Mr.
Preston,
This screwdriver
Mr.
is
Preston.
left-handed, and it costs $100,000.
Right. And to open and to do an assessment on your thing, that's about $2,000.
We're going to plug it in, and this is a proprietary plug-in clip.
Yeah,
so we've seen that one.
I've seen a vendor. I saw a vendor that charged an upgrade software assessment fee. Okay, where they said, "Well, we know you're going to have to upgrade, right? We had this little toolkit, right? This little toolkit,
and it wasn't for $9.95.
It was not $9.95. For this little toolkit, you've got to spend and buy for you to kind of figure out how much that upgrade across 17, lines of business and sharp, pointy fang integration points, before you do that." So I'm like, wow.
Let's talk about a couple of success stories in conjunction with a couple of failures.
Ooh.
What are those differences between the ones that went south and the ones that are successful when you look at comparable business models for what they were doing?
Inevitably, the number one thing is a solution architecture. Number one.
Yeah.
End of story. Game over. Checkmate. When I've watched solution architectures from the bit, for how you kind of start this building block process and how you're going to do that, I've watched multi-million-dollar cleanup on aisle 7 because of poor solution architecture.
And whether that's driven by
that can be a combination of poor definition of the business by the client, or just poor solution architecture by the vendor.
Crappy vendor support.
And we've gone in and cleaned up a lot of messes in 25 years.
We've got a lot of mop buckets.
I mean, for somebody, when we were at that stage of our business, we were like, big grins on our face saying, wow, they've got a big problem in city X.
Yeah.
And there's, people have lost their jobs or whatever. And we did really well on the cleanup. But solution architecture was usually the number one thing, or incomplete requirements definition. I hate that, but it's reality. Or not taking an iterative approach to requirements definition and business evolution. And so, or sometimes, you buy a piece of your technology stack that's just inflexible. They can't do something.
And you have to make the decision. Do you let that be a linchpin that drives everything else into the ground? Or do you take that architectural view and go, this piece does not fit anymore with what we need to do?
What a lot of people do is they say, shit, man, I've got, X amount of millions of dollars invested this, and for me to go to the board of directors and say, I need to replace this thing that we spent 4 years selecting, and realize it's got a limitation. A lot of people end up doing workarounds and adds up, and then you bring
bolt on the bolt.
Then you got the bolt on, and then this and that.
Add this, and
now you've got more points of failures and swivel chairs, and it's really aggravating, but it's reality.
And you have to increase your staff level by about 4% to 40% more, based on the number of manual things you wind up doing with these bolt-ons, because it's not integrated, it's not efficient. You have those things where you do one task, well, let me go see if it worked, and then I'll go do another task.
And then you blink and you've got 40 people offshore, doing nothing but just
pressing buttons,
care and feeding, and kind of error resolution, and it's like, dang, man, what the hell?
And so, which one was actually more expensive? Replacing the thing you spent 4 years on, but now you've built this monstrosity to support it.
That's a tough
battle.
That's a tough part for a CIO. And
absolutely.
We talked about it before that, man, they've got just such a hard job.
How do you do that? Because
it's not
expensive.
just the CIO, it's also the next layer down, that VP of app dev, or that guy that's responsible for these, chunks of systems.
Then you get your people managers that are in there, and the support pieces.
They have a tough job. And trying to make it all work. And so it gets back to really what I said before.
Architecture, right?
Architecture and the definition of your business.
Yeah.
And being honest in the definition of your business. And are you allowing people, money, infrastructure, software to deal with evolution?
And do you plan for the headroom you need to be able to be a little flexible as you go down the road with your plan for your annual plan? Circling back to the topic of that annual plan.
Well, there's December and all those plans are being finalized.
Yes, right now.
You know, a lot of people in rooms sitting there right now.
Excel is hot and smoldering.
Smoking. How can I?
PowerPoint's going crazy.
How can I cut heads? Where can I do this? All this kind of stuff. So, right now it's a very timely topic.
Yes, it is.
But like I said, most of that information gathering done was spring, summer, kind of putting it all together, then putting it in a nice little ball and sending it up to the altar, praying for your project to get approved or your initiative to get approved, and not making it, and grinding of teeth. And
everybody does the trailing 12-month view or something of that order, or should be doing that, to look how well did we work to plan, for one thing. And number two is there's more than just the financial piece to that plan. There's the people, there's the software, there's the services. If you take it all in aggregate, you want to be able to grade yourself on that and identify, were we short headroom for some of these processes? Would it have been nice to get to this next level here? But we didn't plan for it, so it didn't get approved. It didn't happen. So that far-reaching, the 2020 hindsight and the 2020 forward vision. You need to be cognizant of both, I think.
So let me ask you a related question. Telco, what percentage of revenue do you think a telco spends on IT, which is inclusive of BSS, OSS, CRM, blah, 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 blah?
I hate those percentages, and you love them. I'm going to say a lot.
Well, it's and if I'm a listener,
but it depends.
If I'm a listener to this thing, I'm like, give me some freaking numbers, man. Right?
Yeah, so, a lot. That's a number.
Man, I've everybody I think. It depends on segments, right?
Yeah,
so the spend on mobile versus broadband is probably 3 to 1.
Yeah,
because it's competitive and it's non-competitive, right? So, but I see everybody trying to work to the smallest percentage as possible. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7, 8 percentage points of top line are allocated to this. It's a range.
I was a little higher. I gave a little more. I was thinking about 12 for mobile. That's kind of high.
That's aggressive.
But they're doing a lot of aggressive build outs now with 5G and the new wires and buying.
Well, that's network. That's not back office.
Well,
man.
Yeah, but see, they all work together.
Yeah, they do. But
that's why I used a lot.
And to me, it's like if you're going to be an innovator, it's going to cost you more.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna try new stuff, the risk reward component, right? You got to spend more, towards the systems and the people,
and you got to be able to You got to be able to fail fast.
And
if you're going to innovate,
Mr. CEO, Mr. Board of Directors need to understand that before they
launch
take
that
the job
candle.
or they say, I'm going to put $500 million into this new initiative, into this new network. They got to know that.
Yep.
And I think they do, but I've seen some really frustrating things happen.
Yeah. And
inevitably, they start squeezing stuff down, and now you're kind of dealing with, I don't know, people just are not honest with these things, typically, 90% of the time. So they're not
realistic about it. I don't know if they're honest. They honestly think they're on a good idea to start with, and I believe that.
All right.
And I think at the end of that,
I'm flashing back to a customer that we had that we did a lot of business with, and they were a publicly held company, and they were going through a wing walking exercise of getting off the old yucky spaghetti code and getting over to the new world, and just overruns and millions of dollars. So the CEO gets on these earnings call, right? And he allows people to dial in, and people, and he says, he goes, well, we've had an overrun issue on the billing system, so that impacted earnings by XYZ%. And this guy gets on it. Excuse me, we're talking about billing system. We're not talking about rocket science. What do you mean? What the heck is so complicated? Why did you fail? Why is my earnings going down by 17 cents this quarter? Well, it is complicated. And there are a lot of nasty snakes, and there are a lot of things involved, to the uneducated user, right? But that's the reality, man.
To answer that question.
And another customer that went through a huge conversion, a big, massive issue, and, big conversion problems, bad invoices going out. They lost 6 or 7% of customers because of the billing system conversion. So there is a problem. There's an example of some, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of subscribers who said, I'm out.
Done.
I'm done. I don't care about your service and your customer service.
Nobody can screw this up.
You screwed up the thing that I give you, the money I give you. You screwed it up so badly for so long. I'm out.
Yeah, I don't trust you.
And so that's part of the reason why when you talk about a billing conversion, that story and 3 dozen others that you could probably, if you talk to people in the space, the cat claws go in the wall.
Yeah.
And everybody just goes, oh my God, heart transplant surgery. Yeah. I'm going to freak out. And it doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't have to be like that.
No.
There's a better way to approach it.
And it kind of goes back to that whole planning and architecture, understanding what you're going to do.
Honesty with yourself.
Well, and being honest, if you don't know the answer, don't pretend you do.
And if you're a buyer, if you're being honest, there's a lot of tremendously bright, brilliant buyers in this space. They can kind of filter through a vendor's BS real quickly. And if they, vendors trying to get the business and, they undercut the price and then they kind of betting on the come to get them on back end change control or whatever. Just be honest, and try to educate the consumer. That's part of that, been there, done that, right? And so, I don't know, man. Everybody wants to try to put their best foot forward and do what they do to kind of win the deal, but how they deliver, inevitably there's going to be something screwed up. And we have one story. We have one story where there was none. Where it just walked. I mean, you launched on it, it went live, and 20 something different interfaces, and everybody went home at 7:00 that night when the launch, and everybody was like waiting for the stuff to explode, right? And all these journeyman, BSS practitioners that were consultants from Switzerland, and they brought them over, and they're sitting there going, what's going to go wrong? What's happening? Why are there not things blowing up?
Are the alarms not on?
What's going on here? Well, it was solution architected correctly. The expectations with the customer were set correctly. Well, yeah. The strategy was kind of eventually evolved into this is what we're doing. And they kind of leaned on somebody to bring best practices. And it all came together in a really nice story. There's a lot of really talented people in this space.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of really talented software, good software out there. But what is it the right culture? Is it the right fit? Is it the right functionality? Is it the right strategy? Did you plan correctly for this? Do you allow for evolution? That's the hard part. We see people that just, when they hear the number,
they go, ow.
They go, ow.
We need to pull that down. We got to pull it down.
I got to pay that much. Remember when we talked about this on the front end side, that things are going to change?
And you want all these things, and you changed it 7 times during the last month?
Yeah, you've changed
in the last month.
8 times in the last month.
And then, so the first number was here. Now we've got 7 changes that have done this to the number.
Yeah.
And by the way, now you have to support this number going forward, which is now actually this number.
Plus some allowance for change.
Right. And then
because
once again,
that's
to your point, then they're like, that number's way too big. How did it go from here to there?
Where's the easy button where I just...
It is. It's just
boom.
You just write a check.
I've got incremental business change. Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me define that. Let me hand it over to the magic vendor, consume it. Oh, hold on. Boom. Good to go.
Unicorn. Sometimes
it doesn't work like that. Now, on the example we were talking about before, where within 2 days, it does do that because it's within, this element that might have 2 or 3 touch points.
Yeah, the architecture.
But when you go out to this and you've got 90 touch points and a change like that requires
all over.
It requires software development, implementation of road codes, and all this blah blah blah. That.
Just your QA time may be 10x over what you do on the other
just
ones.
The introduction of the concept,
stakeholders identify what's going to hit.
It's waterfallish, man. It's just why would you live with that waterfall approach? Agile development, agile, iterative, incremental business change.
Nimble, quick, and responsive.
Yeah, I think. But anyway, I don't know if I got anything else, man.
All right. Well, then that can be a wrap. Thank you very much for joining us on Revenue Uncoded.
Thank you very much. No, actually, this is pretty cool. So the Revenue Uncoded thing is something I'm very, I'm very much looking forward to. And what's really cool is that we had dinner last night with somebody in the industry, but in a different space. And when we kind of talked about introducing his stories and his issues about how do you really address incremental change, how do you make more money, how do you optimize things, he kind of got geeked about it.
Yeah, he did.
And I really want less discussion about us,
absolutely,
right, and more about the problems that our clients are having. Right, I want to invite clients. I want SMEs from other elements to kind of weigh in.
Yeah.
And competitors, I don't care, right? I mean, we're all chasing the same thing. We're trying to get, we're trying to get the listeners, better information, better so that they can just, learn, get something out of it.
Be better, smarter buyers,
right? Well, they don't have to be buyers.
Well, if you're
they're just people in the space,
stuff,
right? You just be in the space, right? So that if somebody does ask you about it, you say, man, well, this is what I learned, or this is what I'm thinking about. Yep. So, this old white-haired curmudgeon is learning a lot, and I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah,
so
I'm glad.
Rock on. All right, man.
All right, don't shoot any unicorns.
That's enough for today. That's this week's episode of Revenue Uncoded. Coded.